Infrastructure, flooding, traffic are all issues affecting residents in North Charleston's District 3 area. And that's why Mumme wants to become the next councilwoman to represent that area on City Council. I talked one-on-one with Monica for this edition of Quintin's Close-Ups. And if you haven't already, subscribe to my YouTube channel and like Quintin's Close-Ups on Facebook. Monica Mumme, welcome to Quintin's Close-Ups.
Thanks for having me. I'm glad to be here today with you.
Oh, I appreciate it greatly. I know that right now you are currently the vice president of the Civic lead of Northwood Estates in North Charleston. And actually, too, you are a candidate for North Charleston City Council's District 3 seat, which covers?
District 3 covers the 52 connector north, University Boulevard south, right, Rivers Avenue west, and I-26 east. Wow. So that's kind of the circle. We are a donut hole kind of in the northeastern part of the city of North Charleston.
And I know your background, obviously, with civic engagement and community relations. So why North Charleston City Council? Why now, Ms. Monica?
I became more and more involved in city politics as I became the president of the Civic League, and have gotten very frustrated with not being able to get very good answers when I brought questions and concerns to City Council. I don't think there's great infrastructure support in my community. And when I question that, I have not been able to get very clear answers. There's not a lot of transparency. And there seems to be a significant amount of funding inequities. The city ran the redistricting based on equal voice for equal votes. And I think in turn that should mean equal funding by district. And the more I've tried to look into things, the less clear answers I've been given. I had made a request to the city to get some speed humps placed in my neighborhood, just something as simple as, 4 or 5 speed humps, which is $5,000 a piece for a speed hump. And I couldn't get the city to commit that kind of funding just for public safety in my community. And that was a pretty significant concern when you look at how the city has spent millions of dollars in other areas of the city for much bigger road projects than that. So it started with little things like that I just wasn't able to get any clear information from the city. And so I've gone to city council meetings, and I probably at least once a month have brought my community's concerns to the city council. And I felt like I was getting a lot of gaslighting, unfortunately, and just really a lack of respect when I brought what was significant concerns for my community to the table. We had a flooding event in August of 2022 in my neighborhood regarding some ponds that we have that are actually city-owned properties that the city has not maintained. And my community has brought this to the table for more than a decade. And the Biden administration had released a lot of funding in regards to water issues, and we didn't have a shovel-ready plan in place. And because the city had not created a shovel-ready plan to fix the problem on their properties, we could not apply for any of the grants and funding to have that corrected. So I really was feeling like my community was being underfunded compared to other areas of the city. And when you don't fund an area that has always been a middle class community, you're going to end up creating a poverty zone. If you keep building and you don't fix the infrastructure problems, you create more significant problems for the community, and our property values will suffer. So it's kind of issues like that brought me to the table and pushed it to where I felt like I had to run.
So what is the property value currently in District 3?
Well, in my community, most of the houses run anywhere from $200,000 to $350,000. That's in Northwood's Estates. Oh, sure. They just built a new community, Magnolia Point, and those houses start at $300,000 and go well over $400,000. So you have neighborhoods like mine and Magnolia Point, and then there's the lakes, and those run a little less than my community. But then there's other parts of District 3 that are mobile home parks and that are low-income apartment houses. So we have a very wide variety in this community. Wow. But you're going to lose that community. You're going to lose the neighborhoods like mine if you don't take care of those infrastructure problems. If my community keeps flooding, my property value is not going to stay at $300,000 for my home. It's going to suffer dramatically. I have pictures of my backyard, and I'm nowhere near the retention ponds of that August 22 rain, and it was not a storm or anything. It was just a heavy rain, and my backyard was a pond. Well, I'm 3 blocks off of the retention ponds. So they've created a bowl effect because we have massive amount of construction that's happened to our north. Rivers Avenue went from being green space to all of the car dealerships, and then they put in the Palmetto Commerce area across I-26. That's where our water was supposed to drain, was out and under I-26.
Okay.
Well, we've been made into the bottom of the bowl. If you look at a bowl, they've changed the water table so that it's higher on the north end and it's higher across I-26 because of the Palmetto Commerce development. So where we used to have water that would run off and out, it has no place to go because Palmetto Commerce has been elevated so much it sits half a foot to a foot higher than ours. So water table is important, and that's infrastructure, and that's lack of maintenance of city properties.
And how many city-owned properties are there currently in District 4?
3. I'm in District 3. They own 3 ponds in my community, just in Northwood States alone.
Okay. And when was the last time they've actually maintained those particular properties?
They come out and do minimal maintenance, and I don't know what schedule that is. Miss Lloyd with Public Works has said that they do some maintenance. So it became such an issue that they hired a survey group, the Revere Group, to do a survey. But they only surveyed the ponds, and then after they did that initial survey and we had public meetings, they realized that this water table problem extends beyond the 3 ponds the city owns. And so it's the permitting of other construction that the city has given that has created a bigger problem than just those ponds. But they have never been maintained adequately.
Wow. So, Ms. Monica, where else is this construction happening that's actually affecting your neighborhood besides Palmetto Commerce?
Well, so Northwood's Estates is the oldest community in the area. So we were built in the 50s and 60s primarily, these homes. And then to the northeast, there have been multiple small neighborhoods, 200 homes to each neighborhood. So Northwood's Estates is about 615, 620 homes in the old part of Northwood's Estates. So you have the lakes and the woods and on Antler Road development, probably 4 or 5 smaller communities with up to 200 homes in each of them, which raise the water table to the north so that their ponds now flood into our ponds when they run over. They were supposed to run out to the Goose Creek Reservoir.
Right.
But because of construction, those waters can't get to the Goose Creek Reservoir to our east. So they come down naturally with water table because gravity wins with water.
Right.
So now that water comes down into our neighborhood. To the other side of us, they've built up the Bentwood neighborhood. And so that is where our water should run out. Now, the city does have a funded project for Bentwood Road. They had one road on Bentwood that flooded full distance of the road, both sides of the road, and they were able to get a grant to fix that system, but they're going to have to put in a hydraulic pump. And so that's the direction our water flows. So if you're having to put in a hydraulic pump to get it off of Bentwood Road, that's signaling to me that there's going to be a significant problem getting it out of our neighborhood if they have to pump it with a hydraulic system to get it off of Bentwood, because that is within the exit area for our waters, if that makes sense. So yeah, it's a matter of water table. So we know Palmetto Commerce was built up. So I found a grant that that the Biden administration had put in place for just these kind of water situations. So I took it to the mayor's office, I took it to Public Works, and ultimately I was told that they can't apply for our area under that grant because they'd made an application for Union Heights. Now, they told me the engineers would get with me and give me information on that, and I've not heard back from them at all. That grant was put public because they didn't have enough applicants for it. City of North Charleston's refusing to put in another grant request for my community. Don't know why, because I haven't gotten a straight answer on that, other than that they had put in one grant and they were not sure that they could put in for 2 grants under that same, 2 applications under that same grant. But I know that grant has not had enough applicants for the funding that's available. So it's issues like that where I can't get enough information back that have pushed me.
And how much is that grant total?
The one that's currently open until October 30th is up to $1 million for a project. Now, the Revere Group, in their summary, had broken it down into different aspects of corrections To completely dredge and drain the ponds in my community would be a $7 million project. To do a partial dredge would be a $493,000 project. The city at the last meeting wanted to push the responsibility on the residents and said that the residents should build retention walls on their property to keep them safe from the city's ponds flooding into their houses. I found that offensive. If it's your property and it's blighted and it's causing flooding, I don't think you should put the community responsible to put in retention walls on their property to keep their property safe from your blighted property.
And hypothetically, Ms. Monica, if that were to happen, and you mentioned it's getting mixed reviews, and some of the people are against it, and it's offensive according to you. How much do you expect the city of North Charleston to give to you all to help build this? Hypothetically,
well, they want the residents to fund their own retention wall, which it's your pond, it's your property causing the problem.
Wow.
If it were my property and my pond causing the problem, I would have to protect my neighbors. So if it's the city's property that's causing the problem, and the city has failed to maintain that property, and the city has permitted building that has created the water table problems, the city should really be responsible for correcting the problem that they have created. It's their property that's endangering my residents in my community. So that's a big issue, and it needs further study, but they need to put out the request for grants for what they can do at this time. In all of this, they have failed to do a contamination study, which is a big problem because they have the dredging portion of this fix under aesthetics, which will never be funded. But if the water's contaminated and the soil underneath the water is contaminated, then it would not be aesthetics, it would be a health hazard issue. At the last meeting, they said they would get studies done for contamination. Now, we have some residents on the pond that have spent the last decade fighting this issue, and I don't have any of their data, but Tara and Jim have looked into this in depth because they live on the pond as well as I think her father. And you can tell just by looking at this pond, the water is brown, the water is dark, it has a foul odor that gets much worse in the summer. They've got fountains instead of aerators, so it blows this foul smell onto their property and has stained their shed in the back of their house when the wind blows in certain directions and the fountains push the water up onto their home. So I don't think it would take much to do a contamination study. My husband's in construction, and he went to one of the meetings and could very clearly give to them an explanation of the proper way to drain and dredge that property, and that the soil and the water would have to go to the Ridgeville site for proper disposal. And we were basically told that would be too expensive. Yes, raise your eyebrows at me, because that was my take. It's like, how can you say that? How can you dump this on the people to fix your problem?
And when exactly did they give you a timeline for when this contamination study would be done?
They did not give me a timeline. They've said that they would do a contamination study for over a year, and it's not been done.
And going back,
actually, almost 2 years now.
2 years, wow. And going back to the hydraulic pump, if I'm correct here, where exactly would they put that in your neighborhood?
It would be on Bentwood Road.
Okay, wow.
And that borders right up against I-26.
Oh, I see.
So it would help push the water under I-26. It would require bigger piping and some kind of hydraulic system to push that water underneath the interstate.
Wow. And did they say how much that hydraulic system would cost the city?
I don't believe in what Ms. Pratt with the grant program said that would cost, but it's I think it was an under $1 million project, but don't quote me on that because I'm not sure.
Sure.
But Ms. Shannon Pratt is the grant writer for the city of North Charleston. And I've had some response from her.
Yes, ma'am. And what else are the three biggest issues in your district besides that and infrastructure?
I think it's very tied. I think it's infrastructure, inequity, and transparency. So there are a lot of infrastructure issues. One of them is sidewalks, simple stuff like roads and sidewalks, which is a public safety issue. We have sidewalks that start and then end nowhere. So if you live up at the front of the neighborhood, where my son owns a house, You can walk almost to the city park, but when you get about 4 blocks away, the sidewalk ends. Green Ridge Road is a big cut-through street, so traffic flies on a 25-mile-an-hour street at 35 to 40 miles an hour. They cut through all the time. So if you have a small child, or I walk my dogs, I'm a 60-year-old lady, my kids are grown, but I walk my dogs. If I'm walking my dogs to my son's house, I have a 4-block run where I have no sidewalk to walk on. That's a minor issue, but it's a safety issue. So the kids in my neighborhood don't have safe access from one end of the neighborhood to the city park. And we have many sidewalks in the neighborhood that do that. On the other side of Otranto Road, which is part of my district but not my neighborhood, they put in a 3-block sidewalk on Deerwood Road. Well, I can't walk or ride my bike to Wanamaker Park because I don't have sidewalk from Otranto Road to where that sidewalk starts up at Deerwood. We have a lovely county park that's less than 2 miles from my home. And I can't safely jog or ride my bike because I don't have sidewalk access to get me all the way from point A to point B, because sidewalks just start and stop irreverently. We have a dangerous corner at Otranto and Deerwood Road that has an 8-foot deep ditch on it because of the construction at Magnolia Point. The water runs, it's all that same thing. They're permitting building without considering the effect that permitting and that building is going to have on the rest of the existing community. So now we have this 8-foot ditch with no side of the road to take children across and it's not an even corner, so it kind of jags around.
Right.
That's the way I go to work every morning. I work at Trident Medical Center. My employment is only 1.25 miles from my house. I can no longer ride my bike to work. I did that for the first year that I worked at Trident, but I can't do that 2 years later because that ditch has hollowed out so badly. I have no side of the street over there. There's no safe bus stop area for the kids coming out of the mobile home park on Deerwood to wait for their buses. They have the same kind of ditch problem there. The corner of Otranto and Rivers Avenue floods regularly now. That was never a flood problem 5-10 years ago. But that's just poor road building. The city permitted the building of a car wash at Green Ridge and Rivers after the community had refused that build in 2019. They amended our zoning in the middle of a 66-page zoning amendment thing for O'Hare Street and didn't bring it back to the community. And so we got a car wash that this community had specifically objected to in 2019. But through COVID, they made these amendments in this big package of zoning. And that goes to the transparency thing that I was talking about. So now we have a car wash that's been built. They didn't have to get SCDOT permits because they allowed access onto Green Ridge Road through an existing drive. The guy knew better than to buy more than 3 acres. He bought 2.73, so he didn't have to get a water runoff study done. It's those kind of transparency issues that I think need to be addressed because our community's not being heard. When we say no to something, to go behind and do all of that zoning change to push a car wash onto a community that didn't want a car wash is ridiculous. And when I went to a Low Country Rapid Transit meeting, they didn't know that car wash had been built. It may interfere with traffic flow for the Low Country Rapid Transit system. It may take away from road footage that's needed to put in the Low Country Rapid Transit, which is a multi-million-dollar project. So there's a lack of communication and transparency even between government agencies.
And Ms. Monica, how much road footage do you all still have left in District 3?
Road footage where? On Rivers?
Well, in your entire district, I should say. I'm sorry.
Oh, I don't know. I mean, we're just this little donut hole. So
Yes.
spatially, we are not a very big district. And when I tried to get the newest district maps from the city, I did a Freedom of Information Act request to the city, and I was sent to a city website, and there is nothing in there that says final draft. They also say draft, but none of them say finalization of district lines.
Right.
The city couldn't give me a map. The city sent me to a website to get a map, and nowhere at that website does it say final. And I was at the city council meeting when they approved the final district lines. I know they had a vote and they approved them, but they don't have them posted publicly anywhere. And my district lines were tremendously affected by that redistricting. So there's not access for me to get a clear copy of exactly where my lines are. My hospital is not in my district. They said when they did the district lines that it was going to be natural and man-made lines. Well, it is on the corner of 26 and University Boulevard, and it is clearly cut out. I mean, it's like they intentionally took out Trident Medical Center and plopped it into the other district. I don't know why. Nobody will answer me why. And I even went to the district relining and spoke at that and said, I don't understand why you're taking the medical center outside of my district. Please explain to me how this follows natural or man-made lines. Why would you take this little section out there, just like they took the little section out where they put the car wash in? That was just this little clipped out section of my community that they put in a different district, which means residents in my district don't get information when they change or when they make amendments to zoning for that property because it's not my district. So we don't get that information. We don't know what they're permitting to build there because it's not in my district. Those are the transparency issues that I feel are really significant. And that all leads to public safety. If you're not maintaining roads and you're not encouraging quality of life and maintenance of property values, you're looking at making a place less safe.
And obviously, I looked at, as a disclaimer, I looked at at the website for the maps just yesterday as a research, and I saw exactly what you just mentioned. So I want to make that clear. And I hope to get a representative from the city of North Charleston on Quintin's close-ups, and I've also tried to get Mayor Keith on Quintin's close-ups as well, but he backed out, and hopefully I'll get him back on soon. But going back to that car wash, Ms. Monica, you mentioned obviously they made some changes to that decision during COVID without you all knowing, and you talked about that package. And I want to know exactly what was included in that package to ultimately bring that car wash to that area.
So in the middle of this entire package of zoning information that was called the O'Hare Street, which is on which crosses Montague and Old North Charleston. There was this one small statement that said this property on the corner of Green Ridge and Rivers, the zoning amendment change was that this B1 property could be used for business, recreation, or highway-oriented use. And that one statement in the 66-page package, that highway-oriented use, is what allowed for the car wash. Because if they didn't have that little blip in there, they could not build a car wash there because that is considered highway-oriented use, not general business. And it was a B1 property. So I don't know how you look at that, but when you're sticking that little bitty statement in a 66-page package of crap related to O'Hare and Montague, which is not anywhere near my community,
right?
Why would I know that I need to go to city council and argue that point? I would not go to a zoning meeting about that package because I really don't feel like that big package of O'Hare Street stuff was relevant to me. I should not be determining what happens on O'Hare Street. That's not in my community. I'm not the mayor. I should, my business is my business in my area. I have to be respectful of the rest of the city, but really I shouldn't determine what they do on O'Hare Street because I don't know O'Hare Street. So I feel like you need to be respectful of the district, the other districts. As a district leader, you need to respect that other city council people are taking care of their community. So I would not have investigated that. And the only reason I finally got that information was because I went as far as pushing for a meeting with the city lawyer and my council person and zoning and permitting and city legal, and found that had all processed through and no one had made a single complaint about that statement. So it went through all of the proper legal process. Zoning, city council, up for public review, public hearing. No one in my community caught it. We were not aware of it. So we didn't know that little statement was in there and that it would affect us so negatively.
And so, yes, ma'am.
I mean, I was so concerned about it. I talked to an attorney friend of mine, had them look at it, and they said basically this went through all of the appropriate legal process for the city. Nobody ever said no to it. So you don't have a legal leg to stand on in regards to that being built there because it went to public hearing and nobody opposed it.
And when did you actually find out about this information?
About the car wash?
Yes, ma'am.
As they were building it, we had no idea that anything was going in there. And then all of a sudden, construction fences are all around and big things are happening. And we started talking about it at the Civic League. And my city council person, Virginia Jameson, was able to tell us what they were building there. And that's when I started making inquiry. So it was at the time of the build. And by then the permits had already been granted and construction had already started. So when I brought it up as a complaint, I was told, well, it's already been permitted. Construction has started. If we halt or stop construction now, the city can be sued. So I had no recourse.
Now, I was out there a couple of weeks ago, but I didn't pay attention to that. But is the car wash open now?
Yes, the car wash is open. And it is a car wash that caters to large volume, like all the car dealerships around here.
Sure.
And so the problem is the corner of Green Ridge and Rivers Avenue has been rated one of the most dangerous intersections in the state, year after year after year. We had 433 accidents in a 3-year period of time at that intersection. That's why they didn't make this guy go to access Rivers Avenue, because SCDOT would not have allowed for access onto Rivers Avenue there at the connector. It would have been too dangerous. Rivers Avenue is a state highway.
Right.
Green Ridge Road is a city street.
Right.
There was a pre-existing driveway from Green Ridge Road to the Arby's. So they allowed the car wash to access into that drive, which then puts all of that additional traffic into my community. So if you are stuck in traffic and you go to your little Google Maps or whatever navigator you have, it will run you Deerwood Road, Otranto Road, Vestavia Road, Green Ridge Road to pass any traffic problems on Rivers Avenue. So now all of this additional traffic is coming through my neighborhood and they won't give me speed humps. So see how it all ties together? What started out as one issue has become, well, okay, if you're going to permit this thing in my neighborhood and I can't do anything about it, at least put in some traffic safety devices. Give me some speed humps on Green Ridge and on Vestavia and on Deerwood so that we can slow the traffic down. Give me some additional 3-way stop signs so we can slow traffic down through the community and prevent people from using it as a cut through. Those are the kind of things I wanted put in place just so that all of this traffic coming and going to the car wash now through my neighborhood, because if you come out of the car wash and you want to make a left-hand turn on Rivers, you have to cut 4 lanes to get to the left-hand turn lane.
I see.
At that corner. So when all this was in process of being built, like I said, I spoke with an attorney's office. I spoke with Live 5 News. Anna Harris came out and did an interview at the intersection, and there were 2 near accidents just in the time she was doing a 10-minute interview with me at that corner. It's frightening. So, that's how these concerns of mine led to this point.
And you probably don't know the answer to this, but how many cars are coming to your neighborhood now as a result of this car wash?
Well, we asked for a traffic flow study, and I've never gotten results on that.
Huh.
I did enough Freedom of Information Act request as well, and it was an assessment, not a study, so they didn't publicize information on it. There's a difference between assessment and a study.
Yes, ma'am. Exactly.
Freedom of Information Act request because I was not getting any straight answers when I went to City Council. My husband and I went at one point, and I presented the information, and he was going to present behind me because you get 3 minutes of time at City Council. And after the disrespect I received presenting the data, my husband went up there and said, I am appalled by the disrespect you just showed my wife. She brought you clear and coherent data, and you just sat up there and looked at your phones and talked amongst yourselves and paid no attention. And that level of disrespect is unprofessional and really not appropriate for a city of this size. And he turned around and sat down. He gave up on all the information. And like I said, he's in construction. We had information on stuff. I presented it very clearly. I'm a data fact-based kind of person. I'm a nurse, medical science. That's been my life for 40 years. And like when I went to the meeting with the attorney and the city zoning and planning people, he was chewing gum and on his phone. I felt so disrespected, it wasn't funny. I've had gaslighting from the mayor. So we have a city park with a pool that is profoundly outdated. My kids both lifeguarded there. It's dangerous. You can't even teach anything beyond beginner swimmers there because it's got 2 shallow ends at each end and a deep end in the middle. So I've been to city council about getting our park updated. And the disproportionate of funding for areas like Park Circle, the Aquatic Center, the Athletic Center.
Right.
So I went to the council. I said, listen, you have all these facilities. Our city park is terribly underfunded. The pool is out of date. The gym doesn't have ADA approved bathrooms. They're not functional. We have baseball fields, no soccer field. We have room for a track. There are plenty of joggers and soccer players around here. Can we get some updates? Couldn't get any of that. And he says, well, your kids have access to the aquatic center or the athletic center. I said, well, how would you expect them to get there? There's no city transportation. So I was told, well, we have city buses. I said, well, there's no city bus routes to take our kids from my community to any of those other facilities. Why not? Well, we don't have bus drivers. Okay, so if you build this beautiful park at Park Circle, spend millions of dollars, but my kids can't get there. You build an aquatic center for swim lessons. You failed to provide swim lessons at my pool for several years in a row. How do you expect kids in this neighborhood to learn how to swim? It's not fair. There's just a terrible inequity in how funds are spent.
How long has that pool been outdated?
That pool, our pool was built in 1950. The pool in Park Circle was built after our pool. Then it was renovated so it could be used by swim teams. Now it's been completely grazed and is being updated again. My pool is still a 1950s pool that is only available for 2 or 3 months in the summer. And now that my kids aren't lifeguarding there anymore, they're struggling to get lifeguards. My kids chose to lifeguard there instead of at the beach where they were qualified and made far less money because it was important for them to teach kids in the neighborhood how to swim to be safe. I ingrained that in my kids, that you are responsible for your community. So they stayed here in Northwood and lifeguarded all through high school and college, taught kids how to swim, and then, was it 2 years ago? For a couple of summers, we had no swim lessons at all here, even in a pool that's not adequate. They only did some resurfacing of the pool edge after a kid cut themselves badly enough on the deck to require stitches. They're putting in a disc golf course instead of fixing a soccer field so that there's at least one soccer field in my district. We have 0 soccer fields. How many kids play disc golf? Very, very few. How many kids play soccer? Hundreds of kids play soccer. They have to play on the outfields of our baseball fields to play soccer because we don't have a soccer field in our community. Nowhere in the district.
And what else needs to be upgraded at that particular pool and with those soccer fields and whatnot?
We need a soccer field.
Yes, ma'am. I'm sorry, but
instead of playing on the backside of baseball diamonds. But so there's a park with some playground equipment. None of that is ADA approved playground equipment. Like I said, the pool is completely outdated. The gym has not been really renovated that I'm aware of, and I've lived in the neighborhood 30 years. Okay. So it's kind of offensive that we see these millions of dollars being put into Park Circle again. And our city park has had no real renovations in that time, just maintenance.
And how many people have moved into that district over the past 4 years, Miss Monica?
My district is 11,000 people, just like every other district.
Okay. Wow.
That was the whole push on the redistricting lines. It was supposed to be equal voice for equal votes. Okay. So every district in the state is supposed to have the same number of people, approximately 11,000. It's just a matter of, is every district getting the same funding? And if you look at those district lines, they now have Park Circle divided into different districts instead of being in one district. And I think that's to spread the funding out to other districts so it doesn't look as lopsided as it did. That O'Hare Street project was millions of dollars in road reconstruction. That's where the Chamber of Commerce built.
Right.
So if you look at that O'Hare Street, it's now a beautiful street with sidewalks, with brand new buildings, all fancied up, promoting that walkable area in the old North Charleston. You don't see gaps in their sidewalks where you can't get from point A to point B. Their sidewalks all go the full direction and distance that they need to go. You don't see drainage problems and flooding in that area. And I think if you go back and look at who owns property in that area and where it's at, you can clearly see who has vastly improved their property values on that project. Because I've done look.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. And I had so many more questions to ask you, but Zoom is only giving me 20 seconds. But Monica, Mumme, thank you so much for your time. And again, welcome to Quintin's Close-Ups.
Thank you so much for having me, sir. You have a great day.
You too. And just a disclaimer, I hope to get someone from the city of North Charleston on to get their side of the story on all of this.
I hope so too.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, thank you so much.
You have a good day. Bye-bye.